welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with me, Christian Harris. Today I'm joined by Laura Aucott, and we delve into what you can do to stand out and get your next safety role in 2025. But even if that's not you, even if you're not looking for a role right now, there are lots of great lessons and insights that we discuss here as part of this interactive safety roundtable that will apply to you and will be helpful. So go away, implement what we speak about, and make 2025 your best year in safety yet. Cheers.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. But for now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this Safety Roundtable with myself and very special guest, Laura Aucott. I'll let Laura introduce herself in a minute. We're going to be speaking about how to get your next safety role in 2025. So we'll speak a little bit in a second about what's been going on in the kind of health and safety space, employment space, some of the trends, some of the things that Laura's been seeing. And then we'll get into answering this question. So, how can you position yourself to be in the best possible space to get a role for next year, if indeed that's something you are looking into? It's going to be interactive, so I've got a few questions and Laura and I will start having a chat in a moment, but very much encourage you to give us your questions. You can do that through the chat, or if you're feeling brave, you can go to reactions, raise your hand, and I'll ask you to come up and unmute and ask away. We are recording this, obviously, so don't start if you're worried about your employer thinking you're actively looking for a job. Obviously, just be mindful of what you're saying. But the idea is for it to be, an open, interactive session as always, and hopefully good fun and something that we can all learn from. So, thanks for joining today, Laura. Do you want to just start by giving a quick intro to yourself if people don't know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. If people don't know who I am, I'd be very offended. But yeah, so I'm Laura Aucott. You've got an old photo of me there as well, Christian.
Oh,
That
sorry.
was about 4 hairstyles ago. So yeah, I'm an associate director for HSE Recruitment, which does what it says on the tin. It's health, safety, environmental recruitment. So we've been going for 22 years, and I've been here for 15. So I've been around for a while in the industry. So that's the day job, is recruiting health, safety, environmental people into various industries across the UK. We also do Europe and a bit of global as well, but it has predominantly been the UK for the last few years. So yeah, hopefully I should have my finger on the pulse, Christian, in terms of what's going on in trends and helping you out. Fingers crossed, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, then we're in trouble. So fingers crossed. And I thought your day job was posting on LinkedIn, like my day job was posting on LinkedIn.
I know. So to be honest, actually, that is a large part of the day job now, which is something we'll talk about a bit in terms of,
sure.
getting that safety job. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn 24/7, pretty much.
Yeah, good stuff. Ditto. Great. Well, look, thanks for joining, Laura. As I said, Laura's here to have a chat with me, but also take questions from you guys as well. So, feel free to chime in as and when you want to. So let's start then with what's been going on. What's kind of the state of the market? I suppose if we think about some really big macro trends, there's been massive inflation. There's stuff around unemployment levels. There's immigration as a big hot topic. So there's lots and lots of big things that are kind of buffering us, shall we say? So kind of what's been going on in this particular space over the last year or so?
How long have you got? So, yeah, look, there's been loads going on. Like I said, we've been in this industry for a really, really long time. So it's not necessarily anything we haven't seen before. There's lots of trends in health and safety, but certain things always happen when there's inflation, when there's an election coming up that has an impact on recruitment. And that has happened this year. It went quite slow first start of the year. A lot of people were very reticent to make moves. They were very reticent to hire new people because they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was going to happen with, inflation. Is there going to be another recession? What's going to happen when the new government comes in? So there was lots and lots of questions around. So it was a very quiet start to the year. Almost the second that the new government came in, everything changed. And it was all hands to the wall. So the industry went mental. This is not just in health and safety. We're part of a bigger company that does HR and procurement and all that sort of stuff. And it was the same in lots of sectors. Everyone all of a sudden had this confidence that, okay, we know what's happening now. Yeah, we know there's going to be certain changes, but we know how to deal with it. We need to recruit again. So the good news is there's loads going on the back half of the year, and we very much expect that to continue into 2025. Again, just giving you a rough idea, like I said, there's always peaks and troughs in health and safety recruitment, right? And usually we know that the summer holidays are a little bit quiet. September goes really busy because everyone hires when they come back from holiday. And then it goes a little bit quieter again going into December before January kicks off. And we actually haven't seen that peak and trough this year. It's just been full steam ahead since end of August, sort of start of September, which is great news for us. We're really busy. Great news for all of you because there's lots of opportunities out there. The only thing that comes across with that is it's very competitive because there's lots of people looking as well. So although there's loads of opportunities, there's a lot of people throwing their hat in the ring for those opportunities. So it can be quite difficult to stand out, which I think is one of the reasons it's really important we're talking today. In general terms, in terms of trends, environmental sustainability, massive. That has really taken on a life of its own. That's been growing for a number of years, but this year in particular, we've really seen that split off and become, this whole new animal, really. So most of our clients have taken the environmental and sustainability away from health and safety and are looking for people to really specialize in that. We've seen well-being has probably taken a bit more of a backseat than it has previously, which is interesting. That was really huge off the back of COVID, and we had loads of people driving for health, safety, well-being people, and that's suddenly gone a little bit quiet. Everyone seems to be back to the technical of it all. That's quite a big driver at the moment, the compliance, the technical. And then one of the other things we've seen is, at the senior end of the market, the focus is massively on soft skills. Right. That's what all of our clients want to see. They don't really care about your qualifications, being brutally honest at this moment. They expect you to have a certain level of qualification, but gone are the days where they want a list of qualifications an arm long. They just want to know you've got the basics. They want to know, okay, what are your soft skills? Can you engage with stakeholders? Can you manage up and down? Have you got those communication skills? So that's really, really big at the senior end of the market. And again, at the junior end of the market, it's kind of stepped away from qualifications as well. They want the bare minimum. They'll want you to have NEBOSH certificate. But at the junior end of the market, it's very much about hands-on experience. What have you done? Have you been on site? Can you demonstrate something that you've done, in terms of risk assessments or safe systems of work or whatever it is? So there's lots of things coming to the forefront. But like I said, the good news being, is there's lots. So that's always
plenty of activity.
Plenty of activity. Yeah, that's absolutely not going to slow down in 2025. Another big trend is the contract side of things. So contract work went really, really quiet for a couple of years when they changed all the IR35 and people got a little bit scared about it. That's come back in full force this year as well. All of a sudden, clients are crying out for contractors. So lots going on is the headline for that in terms of trends.
Very good. There's a few questions coming in already, so I'll just dive into a couple of those.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned about the senior end and the sort of entry level. There's a question here which is asking about what could help fresh graduates to get health and safety jobs without any experience.
We get asked this all the time, and it's
Yeah,
really tough. I completely appreciate this. I spend a large amount of my time talking to people about this sort of stuff. Like I said, the focus is on that experience side. So it's about trying to create that experience in any way that you can. So you don't necessarily have to have had a health and safety job previously, but what can you call upon? So, for example, my niece recently got into health and safety, right? And she was a lab manager previously.
yeah,
So she was a lab manager. She had just started doing an NEBOSH certificate. She wanted to get into health and safety. So I advised her, pull out what you have done. Right. Yeah, you've not been a safety professional before, but you're in a lab manager role. You have done risk assessments. You're
yeah,
aware of that sort of thing. So pull that out and demonstrate what you have done. And she did that, and she got a couple of offers, and now she's flying. So look at what you can use in previous roles that's applicable, and make that really, really obvious on your CV and your applications.
yeah,
Look at what can you do in terms of volunteering or apprenticeships. One of the bits of advice I always say is things like construction not construction, sorry, charities are always looking for volunteers, right? And they often take volunteers in health and safety. Could you go along and help them with some risk assessments? And the big thing is that networking side, is
yeah,
connect to as many people as possible, talk to as many people as possible, and get them to help you out. We know how lovely everyone is in the health and safety market. If you are going to these networking events and you make a really good connection with someone, they may be able to say, well, look, why didn't you come and shadow me for a week and pick some experience up there? So it's about trying to, I suppose, think outside the box with it a little bit if you haven't
yeah.
got that hands-on experience, and demonstrate it any way you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And it's similar to what you would say for. I'm trying to think of a similar sort of role that isn't, obviously if you want to be a doctor, then you kind of need to have your qualifications and you have work experience and things like that. But let's say you wanted to be, a lawyer.
Yeah.
Obviously you can study law or you can do a law conversion course, but actually what they're interested in, and I know this because my wife recruits
Oh,
associates as part of her role in a law firm,
yeah.
is actually that you've got up off your bum and you've done something commercial and
Yeah.
you've done something to sort of flesh out that CV,
Exactly.
and try to work in an environment that's similar to the environment you're trying to go into. So, nobody's
Exactly.
expecting you in that sort of entry level role to obviously be an expert, because then you wouldn't be going for an entry level role. But it's kind
Yeah.
of what can you do, I suppose, to just show how keen you are.
Yeah. And I appreciate it is difficult. I know it's very difficult. And like we said, although there's lots of roles around at the moment, there's a lot of competition for those roles as well. So I get that it's very, very hard. So the more you can demonstrate it on your CV, the better. And the interview as well. It's about getting across anything you've done that's relevant. Think outside the box a little bit. It is definitely the message with that.
Yeah.
And try and make as many connections as you can. Lean on them. Ask people for help. Most people are nice at the end of the day, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, apart from that lead Deeble guy, he's not very nice.
Yeah,
Can't
don't
believe I'm
ask me.
picking on him on his first safety roundtable. Bogdan, you've got a question. You got your hand up.
Yeah, sure. You hear me, guys?
Yeah,
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 Oh, well, first of all, thanks for organizing, Christian and Laura. I do have some concerns. I mean, even the market, as you said, is quite competitive at the moment. Salaries
Mhm.
are really not even close to what would be
Yeah,
the expectation of a properly experienced health and safety guy. I think the market is completely dislocated from the reality on the level of work related to that particular role,
yeah,
and at times when I get contacted by basically some particular recruiters, when I discuss with them, I have to help the recruiter actually shape the role, because even a client doesn't know exactly what he wants. He
yeah,
kind of copy paste to somewhere else kind of a profile, and the organization itself struggles. Actually, I got a few recruiters that actually help thank me, because they say, "Well, Bogdan, you really help us basically find a role, but they're not going to budge on the salary." I say, "All right, but good luck with that." And it
hmm
ends up basically that the company's 3, 4, 5 months later on still recruiting for the role. I mean, you say, "Wondering, well, guys, you need to read and then find out exactly what's wrong. Or either it's too much work and the compensation is not right. I don't know." But just to add on that particular, this is my finding from last few months in terms of understanding what was going on in the job market for professionals like us. Second is basically companies may well probably have joint ventures. A lot of companies right now do have a lot of joint ventures in order to share risk towards basically whatever the business model is. And normally these just joint ventures open opportunity for secondments. So probably that secondment is a role that you can find someone which is junior to get in that secondment and get all the experience.
Yeah.
So all that particular experience from the joint venture basically and develop the experience he needs. I understand it's quite kind of challenging for anyone to get that experience. And especially I do advise with charities, be careful, because why I'm saying this is because charities do really need to kind of have a better control on what is being delivered on their behalf. So at times, basically, they're really too cautious in terms of allowing anyone to work with them, especially on health and safety, because if anything, a single thing goes wrong, it's going to go against the reputation of the charity.
Yeah.
So it is one of the issues. I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is basically it at times actually requires more definition of what the role is going to deliver. I mean, I once, and just to close, sorry I'm taking too long, it's just basically I worked for a charity that was very much rebuilding 4 different beautiful churches in England, and I offer myself to support them on the fire safety assessment. And through the fire safety assessment, basically, we went through the whole process. Actually, they ended up basically hiring a guy because I said, you need someone that would very much stamp. I do know about that, but I'm not feel comfortable basically signing on that piece of paper because you need around 1.8 million pounds in investment to upgrade the fire safety of these churches. I mean, you don't get that money through the charity. Sorry, I mean, my name is on the paper, and if something goes wrong, it's going to be me in the grill. Anyway, just an example on these things. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, back to you.
Good stuff. Any thoughts on that, Laura? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with all the points. You know, it's there definitely is probably a disconnect between what clients want and what is out there at the moment. That is absolutely true, and it's one of the biggest things that we struggle with. You know, as recruiters working with clients, is giving them those realistic expectations. It's the reason we do things like the remuneration reports every year, because we can give them that data and say, well, look, you know, you're looking to hire X, but on average they're getting paid Y. You know, the more information we can give them on the market, the better. Some clients are open to that, some clients aren't. You know, sometimes they will take our advice, sometimes they won't. The thing I would say is that usually the ones that won't take our advice in terms of salaries, in terms of what's realistic for experience, in terms of the sort of people they should be looking at, are usually the clients that we then say we can't work with. You know, because there's no point if they're not going to take that market information on board. Yeah, you know, we're not going to be able to help them. So I think that, yeah, making sure they're partnering with the right recruitment company or partnering with the right person that understands the market is hugely important. You know, we see this all the time with health and safety jobs. You'll get a HR person will put out an advert for a health and safety person. They'll say, oh, must have IOSH, and they don't really know what that means. Yeah. So it is sometimes very difficult when you're applying direct, and you do, like you said, Bogdan, you do sometimes have to educate them. Yeah, it's a tough market, but that's why I do think having a really good recruiter that you know to help you get in front of people always helps.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Chris, you got your hand up. You got a comment or question?
Yes, both really, Christian. Good to see you, first of all. Hi, Laura.
Yeah,
hi.
Nice to meet you. So it's really interesting what you were saying there from a sort of having a wider view of the recruitment market perspective. And I know you were talking about you mentioned entry level positions there. I'm just thinking about more, you know, I guess the higher level positions, and if you think about that phrase, the competent person, you know, that's really what I'm thinking about. So, you know, everyone on the call knows, you know, there's a really clear definition of competency in the regulations around experience and qualifications.
Yeah.
And now what we tell all of our member organisations, when you're looking for competency, and like Bogdan said, you know, you're asking these people to make critical decisions and put their name against things. You've got to make sure they're competent. So when we're advising people, we talk about professional accreditations like being a chartered member of IOSH, that sort of thing. And again, you know, we all know how that journey works. I'm just interested, do when people are looking at these higher level positions, where do they sort of fit that chartered member of IOSH thing in? Because to me, sorry, I'll finish in a minute.
Okay.
But to me, having an EBOSH certificate or diploma, okay, great. You've passed an assessment. I realise the assessment's changed, it's better, but you've passed an assessment, great. Where's the experience? Where's everything else? And that's what comes in your IOSH membership grade. So yeah. Does anyone ask about that in terms of
yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's one of the things that really does help from that skills perspective. 100% at that senior level, it's not about the qualification. They expect you to have a basic, the qualification. So they may say, a manager and above, they probably expect you to have a diploma or a master's or something similar. But what they're looking for is that extra to demonstrate that competency. And that can be in the form of, an IOSH membership. Are you a chartered member? Therefore, have you done your CPD? Have you, had that back and forth with someone to check that you actually know what you're talking about? Or it could be other things in that, maybe you're involved in an industry group or something like that. But it's anything like that that's associated that can back up that competence. That's 100% what they want. No, rather than just that qualification. The qualification is kind of the minimum expectation.
Expected.
And that's the expected. You've got to demonstrate more than that now.
Okay. And in your experience, understand that, and thank you. In your experience, are there employers out there that say you must be a chartered member of IOSH, for example?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I don't think it's as common as it has been in the past.
Okay.
But absolutely. When we're working, very high level roles, they're retained. So someone's paid us to go and headhunt someone. They want the best, and by most definitions, they think the best is they'll want a chartered professional.
Okay.
So absolutely, it does come up. I do think it's not as common as it was previously, but it's 100% there. And I would say maybe 75% of the roles we work at that senior level that they will want that. Whether it's IOSH or fellow of RSM, they will want some sort of membership.
Got it.
Like that.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, kind of echoes with what I've seen and heard as well. Lee. Unmute yourself.
Wouldn't be a webinar without saying you're on mute.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Lee.
Hi, Laura. Laura, now listen, absolutely. I think qualifications, although it's not needed in health and safety, there's not a law that says you have to be certified. It goes back to the competent person. But for somebody who's been doing health and safety now for many years, and who's got the NEBOSH, got the IOSH, what a waste of paper. Honestly, I've never, ever been asked to show it to any future employer or an interview. The thing that gets me is when you're being interviewed by, like you said earlier, by people who ain't got an idea what IOSH is, right? So you look a bit stupid anyway. What I've seen, and be honest with you, I recently had an interview, only because it came up, but all they wanted to know was experience. Lee, what can you do to enhance what we've already got? Now, you can't learn that from having a IOSH, CPD, in whatever high senior health and safety management certificate is. You can't learn that. You got to learn that by being there day in, day out, having the experience. That's what the whole interview was. How can you help to improve us? Okay. And that's what it's about. Whether it be about fire, manual handling, risk assessments, anything like that. So when you say about chartered, or whatever the top doing, I would never ever take another health and safety exam because it was just a waste. Yes, I know what to do. The only thing insight did give me, and I think IOSH is very brave, they gave me an insight into what is expected of you, and that's it. But everything else you learn. My best friend is Mr. Google. Right? Because the MD will constantly come to me and say, Lee, what do you think? I ain't got a clue, but I'll Google it and we give them some suggestions. It is for anybody, and I'm looking at all the messages here, for anybody who's looking for health and safety roles, getting into health and safety roles. And Laura, you are so right. First time meeting you, my darling. You're so right. It is all about experience.
It really is,
Even if you do a voluntary week, do it. It ain't going to kill you. Do it. That's what I did, first of all, and 12 years later, I'm head of safety and facilities. But it is do the work, do the charity bit. Even if you help out the local church and say, I'll be all right if I've done your risk assessments. Right? It all helps. Like you said, you are right. When you go to that interview, here's what I've done. Here is my bits of paper. This is what I can achieve.
Absolutely, yeah, because whenever we set interviews up for people, no matter what the level, an interview is always 99 times out of 100 a competency-based interview, which means they want to know, what have you done that you could therefore do for us? So that's why we say it is very much about the
Yeah.
experience. And yes, the experience or your competency can be demonstrated through the Irish memberships and things like that, but an interview is always going to come down to
Yeah,
an
no one,
example of
no
when
one's
you
ever,
did this.
I've been at this, my job at Albion, no one's ever, although I've shown them immediately, but they never said, oh my God, you must have this certification. They don't even know what Irish means.
Yeah.
They don't know what
Yeah.
NIBOSH means, but it does give you a small insight. But for anybody trying to get into health and safety, and I'm looking at all the messages and people wondering how do we get experience, experience, experience,
Yeah.
and and the ability to say no.
Yes.
That's the one. That
Yeah.
is the one. So
Yeah.
anyway, great to talk to
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah. I personally find this very encouraging as well, in that I think that what it's showing is that organizations are taking, it might sound a bit counterintuitive to say this, but they're actually taking safety more seriously, because
Oh,
what they're
definitely.
not now saying is, we just got to tick these boxes and have these
Yeah.
qualifications. We're now actually saying, we're looking for people that can add value, that can help us to achieve our objectives and can be an enabler of whatever it is that we're trying to do.
Yeah,
And therefore,
100%.
yeah,
That was a big change off the back of COVID, actually.
Mm.
One of the few good things that COVID did bring about was that all of a sudden a lot of companies really understood the importance of their health and safety teams, and it has moved far away from it being now a checkbox exercise. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, good stuff. Anton, you got a question?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Anton.
Oh, good. Hi, Christian. Hi, everyone. I've got a bit of a question because I'm reflecting on a lot of the comments in the chat, including what Lee and Chris have said. And I've also had my own experience with recruiters and companies directly on, yes, they want the bare minimum for qualifications, and the experience does speak volumes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people do struggle with getting experience, but you can do other things outside of that. Go and do a risk assessment around your own home or volunteer. There is stuff out there. What I find interesting is, especially maybe Laura could answer this, is what approach can an individual or recruiter do to ensure that the employer actually understands this person's qualities, because and also understand what the role they're looking for. What I find is often, I think Lee mentioned it, you have roles that are rebadged 6 times, or the same role is still being recruited months down the line. And they're very much the same role. To me, that indicates they don't know what they're looking for.
100%. Yeah.
And I've spoke to a few companies in the past where, someone very senior HR director goes, yes, we must need this qualification, but actually don't actually understand what that is.
Yeah.
And also what I've noticed in the market is health and safety is changing. Yes, it's being taken more seriously, but what's also being added to it? For example, sustainability is now being added to health and safety. So I personally am going into the sustainability side and getting a few certifications. They might be useless, but I think they're good to have. But yeah, what other things do you envisage also that will be taken into the health and safety roles?
Sure. Yeah, a couple of good questions there. In terms of the first one, I mean, I am going to say this because I'm a health and safety recruiter, but I genuinely think it's true. This is why having specialist recruiters is good for clients, because most times, if you think of a client might have thousands of people that work for them and they only recruit 1 or 2 health and safety people. Of course, they don't understand necessarily what that role is, or what sort of person they need. Of course, they don't have that knowledge. If you've got a HR director or an internal recruiter for a company, usually they're recruiting 300, 400 different jobs for that company all at the same time, all in completely different industries. So that's why they have traditionally just said, oh, just IOSH or NIBOSH, or because they don't know anything else, they don't understand it. Whereas when you work with a specialist recruiter, that's why you're working with us, because we have that knowledge. All we do is recruit the sector, so we can help guide you. So that's always my advice is, a client should reach out for some specialist knowledge and support. But like I said, there are clients that won't take the advice on board, and that's the reason we walk away from them. We're not just here to make money. We're here because we genuinely care about health and safety. So I'm not just going to place someone into a company for the sake of it, for a bum on a seat. I want to make sure I'm placing someone into a role that is good for them, is good for their development, where they're actually going to make a difference. It's going to be good for the industry overall. And the only way I can do that is by working with a client that will take my advice on board, and they'll listen to us about the market intelligence. So yeah, we do what we can, I think, is the message there in trying to help them and educate them. It's the reason we do the salary surveys and all the different white papers and things like that, to give them that information and hopefully help educate them. In terms of what's coming, sustainability absolutely is huge. Like I said, I think I'm seeing it split off a little bit more rather than what they used to do, which is just lump everything under the health and safety banner, right? Your health and safety, but you can do a bit of quality, you can do a bit of environmental. Oh, you can do the well-being, that's fine. Oh, we'll give you the fire. Oh, we'll give you the facilities. We'll give you the security. That's long been the trend. And with sustainability, I think we're seeing that split out as a separate thing now. They're very open in the sustainability market at the moment on taking health and safety people, because there is a skills gap. There aren't necessarily loads of people that have gone this route for sustainability. They tend to be safety professionals with, an emphasis on environmental or something like that. There's no really defined career path yet for sustainability. In health and safety, it's quite clear. It's, officer, coordinator, advisor, manager. It's very, very clear of how you get to the next level. Sustainability's not really got that yet. So absolutely, if it's something you're interested in, I would 100% start skilling yourself up, but it may be that you'll be going to do a sustainability job, not a health, safety and sustainability job.
Definitely. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah. If anybody is interested in thinking a bit more about sustainability, I did a safety roundtable with a guy called Jasper Steinhausen probably 18 months ago now, and he wrote a book called Making Sustainability Profitable. So I'd recommend going and listening or watching back to that, because he sort of laid out, some of the big trends and how to go about sort of pitching sustainability and so on. So that might give you some things to think about from that perspective as well. Daniel, you've got your hand up. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Chris, and yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good. Lots to unpack here. It's great discussion.
We could talk about this for hours.
Absolutely.
It's almost like I have a knack of coming up with good topics.
Yeah, well, I like to pitch in on things that I've had personal experience on. So for those who don't know, I'm a global EHS director for PepsiCo for fleet safety, and I've been through multiple stages of development over the years, and lots of the discussion that's been going on, I think, is really relevant, and lots I agree with, lots I don't necessarily agree with. But I think that's positive. That's, it's all dependent on personal experience. I started off in the industry in 1997, having done an environmental degree, and fell into health and safety, if you pardon the pun, because I saw the alignment between the regulations of EHS, or environment and health and safety, and the management systems at the time. And I was very lucky that I then forged a career that then developed food safety, quality, dangerous goods, transport, and lots of other areas. And I've worked through charities who have been very, very beneficial for my development. So I'm not going to disparage all charities, because I think some of them, if you're in the right one, can help depending on what they're doing. I think the idea of utilizing recruiters to steer you in the right direction is really important, because they can tell you what you're worth, where you need to develop. But I can also say you need to absolutely understand where your current position is, and also understand what the role is that you might be pitching for. Because the description of a role that you see on a job description, or a recruiter's advert, or a company's advert, can be very different to what you might experience if you get into that role. So I know from personal experience that what might have been a head of health and safety role, which I've been in a parcels business in the UK, is classed as a manager's role in an international food safety business that I currently work in. So just because you see a title doesn't necessarily mean that that is at the level that you're at. You may be above it, you may be below it. you have to be very, very careful about what you are applying for and understand your abilities, your competence, but be willing to accept the feedback and obviously ask for that feedback. Yeah. Why didn't I get that role? What could I do to improve my performance? What could I do to improve myself for the next time you come along? And if you're, big organizations are always willing to provide that feedback. Don't be shy. Ask for it. That's a key thing, because they then know that you're keen and they will keep you in their mind for the next time a job comes along. But you've got to put yourself out there and you've got to be willing to accept the feedback.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so many good points in there, Daniel. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, in terms of putting yourself out there, I'm such a big advocate for this, because I always say to people, if you apply for a job and you don't get the role, what's changed? You didn't have the role anyway, so there is literally nothing to lose. But what you may gain, like you said, is that feedback and that commentary and that understanding of where you need to develop and where you can go to next. Also, the thing you said about really truly understanding the role you are applying for, I 100% agree with, because we know in health and safety job descriptions are so two-dimensional, and most job descriptions in health and safety look almost identical. There's not a huge lot of difference to them, but the roles themselves are completely different. And again, obviously I'm saying this from personal experience, but that's one of the reasons I think it is good when you're working with a recruitment partner, because our job is to understand that and understand the culture and, where are you in terms of safety culture in that company, and what's the journey and all of that sort of stuff that builds out that job description, so you can truly know what it is that you're actually applying for and what it is that the role is going to be if you do get it. So yeah, I so many good points in there, completely agree. But yeah, throwing yourself out there, that's always been actually the way I do everything. I say yes to everything, because try it. What's the worst that can happen? You get, like I said, you get that feedback, you get that understanding, you've learned, you've developed. That's never going to be a bad thing.
I think there was one comment in there that HR people in companies don't necessarily know what they're asking for when they ask for IOSH qualifications.
Yeah.
They probably don't, because they've been told by somebody who's in an operational or an EHS position previously that that's what they should ask for. And it's not about them understanding what that qualification is. It's the badge of responsibility that qualification comes with.
Yeah.
Anybody who is either chartered member of IOSH or fellowship of IOSH, or even somebody who's done the general safety practitioner's qualification, they have a degree of responsibility to live up to that responsibility of having that qualification, and therefore they're recruiting someone that they can trust.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing to think about.
Yeah, I completely agree. Very good points.
Yeah, very spot on. Thanks, Daniel. Question here about diversity. So how can we promote diversity? So I remember interviewing Louise Hosking on the podcast, and she said she was talking about the great strides that the profession had made in terms of gender equality. And then she said it was something like 29% are now women, and I was like, wow, that's still not very equal. So what's been going on there, and what can we do to help promote more diversity?
Yeah, I'll try and give you a snapshot of this, because this is my other specialist subject that, that I spend a lot of time talking about, so we could go into this for hours. There is so much we can do from a diversity perspective. The first thing that most people don't understand is actually diversity and inclusion starts way before the interview stage. This isn't about making sure that there's no bias in the interview stage and that you're interviewing everyone correctly. It's about how are you even attracting, diverse candidates in the first place. So the example that I often use is, we had a client years ago that said, we'd love to recruit more, more women into the company and different ethnicities and different sexualities, but we only ever get white men, and we don't know why. And when we delved into it, they only ever advertised in The Guardian. That's where they put their advert. So, so it was quite a simple fix there. It's okay. It's not that you are discriminating of these people when they get to interview stage. They're just not. They're not necessarily even seeing the advert in the first place, or they're not applying to it. So it's about thinking, okay, where am I advertising? Where am I? Areas that I can reach out to people, and are they accurate? It's what's the language that I'm using? am I using very masculine language in my job adverts that maybe could be off-putting to women, or am I using inclusive language? There's loads of apps that can help you with that stuff and can help rewrite the different adverts. And then it's about thinking about it from an accessibility point of view as well. So, is the advert accessible in terms of people with maybe who aren't neurotypical or who have ADHD or things like that, or dyslexia? Is it accessible in that way? Is the job profile accessible to people who maybe have come a different route because of their nationality or something like that? So again, an example we use is we had a client that wanted more diverse candidates, but for their senior roles, they always said this person had to have a red brick engineering degree. And that was already counting out loads of people that would be really, really good, that had the experience, that were more diverse, but were being discounted because they didn't have an engineering degree from a red brick university. So it's thinking about so much more before you even get to the interview stage, I think is the big message for us. Of course, when you get to interview stage, there's loads we can do, or even when you get to CV stage. We had HS 2 years ago did a project where they took CVs out of the question entirely for some of their jobs. So rather than anonymize CVs, which does help a little bit with bias, but you still can pick things up from CVs. You can tell probably someone's age, you can probably tell where they're from, that sort of thing. They just took CVs out of it and they asked competency questions for their application process. So it was about what can you do? Have you done this? Give me an example of when you did this. And they found that increased their diversity numbers, tenfold. Another thing we've done, which sounds counterintuitive, but actually works really, really well, is we introduced video interviews for sending candidates across, which you would think would be counterintuitive because you can see who the person is, you can see, their race, their gender and all that sort of thing, their age. But actually what happened is we could look at the metrics behind that when we sent a video, a group of videos over to a hiring manager, and we could say, well, did you realize that actually all of the white men, for example, you watched the full video, but actually for everyone else, you only watched 10 seconds before you turned it off. There's some bias going on there. So that worked quite well. So like I said, specialist subject. I love this subject. We could talk about it for hours, but the key points for me are think about the stages before the application. How accessible are you making it for people? How inclusive is that process?
Yeah, as you say, it's a massive topic and
topic,
one that perhaps we might even do another session on that entirely in the new year, because it is one that we all need to be doing better at, I think. So thank you for coming. Bogdan, you got your hand up again.
Do you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
All right. So, not taking too long. Thanks very much. It's a sort of a conversation that for many of us that kind of try to at least make the right set of questions and try to get some input for experienced recruiters. I just want to bring the last two job applications before the one I got is my conversations with a recruiter during the interviews. I had to push back even the company recruiting in terms of questions as to how much are you willing to invest in HSE, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years. The two interviews went inconclusive, not really clear understanding of what was the investment about. And then I said, okay, so if your approach, if I'm picking right between the lines, that what you want is not an army of HSE professionals in order to keep it basically lean, I'm more than happy to take the role, but then you need to commit that the people that will have responsibility in delivering their job safely, they will listen and they will be part of the process, and they will be very much involved in the administrative work that needs to be done in order not just to be compliant, but also basically to push beyond that. Turns out actually that you don't get that commitment. So at times, as a professional, all I can say here from my own experience is don't rush. Don't rush. When you look for the right job, just basically get that sense from the recruiter. If you feel that there is a void, there's a gap, ask and try to cover that gap, supporting the recruiter. Your recruiter is beyond your best friend. It's the person that will link you to the right job. And then also, you will help the recruiter shape that job to your real needs and allow the client actually understand much better what you are capable to deliver. But that's the reality. A lot of other questions in the chat are very relevant. Diversity, people with no experience in UK, kind of things like that. That's a little bit too difficult to answer at times. but I do understand the concern. You all are champions. After all, we are all angels. Our job is protecting people. What I keep telling my boss, and just to close here, is I'm not here to make you happy, because he keeps telling me I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy. I say, sorry, I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to make you safe. And he said, well, fair enough, Bogdan, thank you. So when we kind of manage to let our people, team, to understand that your role can deliver, but they need to get engaged, you are in the perfect place, in the perfect job, go on with it. Thanks very much, Christian and Laura, for organizing, Anton and all of the others. Basically great inputs. I gotta jump into my next call, but then let's follow up on this. As I said to you, the market at the moment is dislocated from the reality in terms of payment. At times I would love to understand why. So cheers everyone.
Yeah.
If we don't get to talk to each other again, happy very much Christmas break to all of you. You too, Daniel. Great inputs just a minute ago.
Cheers. Thanks, Bogdan.
Cheers.
Yeah,
cheers.
Some really good points there, I think, Christian. You know, one of the things we always say is, look, an interview is absolutely a two-way street, right? That you are interviewing the company as much as they are interviewing you. You know, we are never going to push someone to accept a role that isn't the right role for them, because, you know, like I said, we've been around 22 years. This is that we've got a reputation. People know who we are. This is about the long-term relationships. We don't want to force you into a position that in 3 months' time is going to be completely untenable. You know, that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, remember, it's a two-way street. The other thing we always say is that the best time to look for a new role is when you don't need a new role. As Bogdan said, the last thing you want to do is rush. You know, you don't want to have to grab at an opportunity because it's the opportunity that's in front of you and you need a new role. So, you know, most of the people that we deal with, we call them passive candidates. You know, they're not actively looking for a new job. They're quite happy in their current position. But because we've taken the time to speak to them and get to know them, and we really understand what makes them tick, we know if something comes up that, you know, this is going to spark some joy for them, or this is going to capture their imagination, or it's going to really use their skills to their advantage, we can talk to them about it because it's something they're genuinely excited about and not something they have to take because they need a new job.
Yeah. Daniel, did you want to come in on something else?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Laura just said there. It's absolutely right that if you are in a position where you're comfortable and somebody approaches you, you're in a perfect position because you can say yes or no. You can go through the process, and at the end, you can still say no.
Exactly.
I've done that. I think there's been some really interesting questions come in there in the chat, and some of them about in terms of, you know, and you'd said about having 10 years experience and still getting knocked back by organizations. I would question whether that is about the nature of the approach to the organization. If you're sending letters out to organizations speculatively, then you may not get a response because they may not be looking at that time. It's very much working with the organization's websites and saying, are there positions there? But again, understanding the nature of the grade of that position. And then other things about, you know, there was a question there about how could we make sure that graduates don't get dispirited. Well, again, it's really key to understand what you're applying for. Look at those organizations you want to work for and really understand what the level of that position is. Don't oversell yourself, but don't undersell yourself.
Yeah.
You know, understand that level of position, make sure that you're the right level to apply for that, because just graduating with an AHS qualification doesn't necessarily mean you've got the experience that an organization who wants somebody to hit the ground running needs. So it's almost worth going to those lower, smaller roles to get the experience. That's what I did. I got 5, 6, 7 years of experience before I even went to a bigger organization, just to really understand what I was trying to do and to understand how the world of work works. You know, that's really important. But I would encourage anybody to keep on applying, but make sure you're applying for the right things, because if you're not applying for the right roles, you're not going to get them. And that's where your recruiter helps.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I'm conscious of time. I wanted to ask you one question, and then maybe go into some kind of so what can we do with all of it? We've spoken a lot about you know, things that are happening, but maybe 2 or 3 top tips or something like that. The question I wanted to ask was about the recent budget and the changes to the national insurance.
Yes.
So obviously we've seen some quite negative responses towards that from the hospitality sector, for example. Have you seen any changes in the sort of buoyancy that you mentioned earlier of the market as a result of that budget, or is it not really affected this too much?
Short answer, no. There is more nuance to that. So definitely clients I've had conversations with, it is a concern. It's 100% something that they're thinking about when they're looking at their hiring strategy for next year. Out of all of the clients that we're working with at the moment, I've only had one that I've said that it'll make them put a freeze on hiring for now, because at the moment, health and safety is one of those industries where it is very, very necessary, and I think most clients are understanding that. They're not sort of filling teams up for the sake of it. They're hiring people because there is a genuine, very definitive need there. So I don't think, knock on wood, that it will have a huge impact in the health and safety industry, but it will have some impact. Definitely. It is making people think twice. I think the impact it 100% will have is that clients will want to be 2000% sure on the person that they're hiring. Because it's going to be an immediate, increase in cost for them, more than it would have previously. There's also something with the day one workers' rights that's coming through that connected with that NI, that's going to have that impact because, not saying that their clients very commonly hire people and then 2 months later get rid of them for no reason.
No, but it does happen, yeah.
They've got to be very, very certain of the person they hire now because of those day one worker rights. So I think it's going to make processes slightly slower initially because they're going to want to take their time and they're going to really, really think about who they're hiring. And it may make them even more discerning than they potentially are at the moment. Which is why I think it's so important that we're really, really coaching people in the industry and helping them with how to sell themselves. How are they getting that information across at interview? Because it happens all the time. We have candidates that we know are fantastic and can absolutely do that role, but they just can't sell it to the client. The client doesn't understand that they can do it. So that's a really big thing that we'll have to focus on, is that coaching and making sure that they can get that message across correctly at interview.
Yeah. So just drawing things to a close then, and say perhaps we can pick this big conversation, so perhaps we can pick it back up again. But what would you say are, and again, it's a big question, but what would you say are sort of 2 or 3 key things that people could do to stand out as that kind of candidate of choice? Is it getting some advice on their CV? Is it doing stuff on LinkedIn? Is it getting that experience? What would you say are the 2 or 3 things that as a general rule would be beneficial to people?
You've known me for a long time, Christian. I love the topic of personal brand. That is as important as ever. Making sure that you really, really have cultivated that personal brand, definitely at the senior end of the market, is massively important, making you stand out. Because like we said, this isn't about now, have you got the base level of qualifications? It's, okay, what extra can you do? Are you going to add value? What have you got in terms of soft skills? What have you got in terms of, culture change and all this sort of thing? So if you've got that personal brand where, on LinkedIn or in person, people know who you are, they know what you stand for, you're speaking at events, you're writing articles for industry magazines, that's going to go a really, really long way in making you stand out. And you're going to get headhunted, which, like we said, that's what you want. You want someone to tap you up for something when you are not looking for a role. And, again, from personal experience, most of what we do is that headhunt approach. I could look at 10 different profiles and they may all have very similar experience in terms of years, industries, qualifications, but one person has got a really stellar personal brand and they're always demonstrating that knowledge and that competence and that experience. They're the first person I'm going to call. So absolutely, that personal brand thing is huge. Like we said, at the junior end of the market, just understanding how to sell the experience you do have. And again, we could do this maybe on another session, but just that basics with sort of, the STAR system when you're at interview, basics around CV writing and actually curating your CV to the role that you're applying for. There's lots of stuff in there that we could do. But just demonstrating, even if you haven't done a safety role, what have you done that connects to what they're looking for and really making that front and center.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that employs people and has recruited people, CVs is a big bugbear of mine. I find most CVs are just far too in-depth and detailed. And you have to remember that, why is TikTok so popular? It's because we have short attention span, so we want the key distilled highlights. I think that would be something from from an employer perspective that would stand out to me.
Yeah, definitely. We and again, like, we could maybe go into this in a different session, but we always say this to people, even if you're not going through a recruiter. Well, in fact, especially if you're not going through a recruiter, if you're applying to a company directly, that HR person has probably got 300 jobs they're searching for, and health and safety is just one of them. They may get 100 applications for each job, so they've probably got about 30 seconds that they're going to look at your CV. So if the job description is asking for Desir experience, and Desir doesn't jump off the page of your CV straight away, then your CV is going to the bottom of the pile. And that happens all the time. Like I said, we'll speak to candidates and we know that, they're great with Desir and Kosh and all this, and it's not even mentioned in their CV.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the call. So yeah, it's really curating the CV is a big point.
Good stuff. Well, look, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your insights today, and thank you everybody for the interactivity and the questions and the comments. And it's obviously a topic that is hugely relevant to everybody, because everybody has to work for a living unless you win the lottery or something like that. So
Christian, this is the most interactive one I've done for ages. So yeah, thank you, everyone. It's been really, really great.
It's good.
Not be talking into the void for once is lovely.
No, it's good. We've got a nice community here that come and do these sessions. So appreciate everybody for joining. Do check out some of those resources. Do take on Laura's tips, and we'll see you again on another episode in a couple of weeks.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.